Sorry.
As I said, Jeff now is founding of Partner Services Perspective LCC and also a founding consultant member and former director of partnership development for SOL, the Society for Organizational Learning. SOL is a non-profit member government organization chaired by Peter Senge. It is dedicated to building knowledge about fundamental institutional change through integrating research, capacity building, and the practical application of organizational learning theory and methods. SOL evolved from the Center of Organizational Learning at MIT, where Jeff was the executive director for 5 years. Jeff has published a number of articles in the area of organizational change, organizational learning, and technology. The relevance of organizational learning for high-performing social networks was published in the book Dynamic Learning Networks in 2009, and his article Organizational Transformation from Inside Out, Reinventing the MIT Center for Organizational Learning, won an award as Outstanding Submission to the Learning Organizational International Journal for 1999. He received a BA from Dickinson College, an AMS from University of Illinois, and Community Secretary at MIT.
Is how many of you were at the keynote that I just did? So, okay, just a few. Oh, all right. So, maybe about a third of you. Okay, thank you for coming back. So, I requested that this be a small group because my hope would be that we could go a little bit deeper into the practice of stance. But since 2/3 of you didn't hear the keynote, I thought it would be at least a little bit helpful to go through the definition of stance and what we mean by that, and a little bit about why stance is important in the practice of leadership. Does that make sense? Okay? Good. The goals are similar to the keynote, and that is for me to talk a little bit about stance, what we mean, where it came from, and why it's important. But as I talked about this morning, the best way for you to understand the concept of stance is to try it on, to use it yourself. And my hope is that by the end of this hour, you really have a good feel for it and how it might be useful in your own leadership practice or as an educator or whatever your particular context is. So, the traditional definition, the English definition of the word stance, really means an opinion, a stated opinion, or literally how you stand, a posture. And my colleagues and I started using the word in a more broad context. And that is, as you see, how you hold yourself in a particular context, in a particular interaction. And it involves both your state of, internal state, your state of mind, what you're feeling in the moment, as well as what's in your body. And let me just share a couple examples of stance. You can, well, I'll share, let me share the list of stances that I was trying to embody in the keynote. As an example, relaxed, clear, organized and focused, articulate, engaged, engaging, alert, listening. So, there's probably an infinite number of stances that people can embody. I mean, you can be in an angry stance, you can be in a confrontive stance, you can be in an action stance. So, is that clear in terms of what I'm talking about by stance? Seeing some head nods. Okay. So, why is this important? A colleague of mine at MIT, his name is Otto Schammer, and he's written a number of books. And what he says is that the blind spot of leadership is the inner place from where we're coming from. That we don't pay much attention to that, and yet it's critical to effective leadership. And I tend to agree with that. Up until Otto did his work, there really wasn't a word to describe kind of going deep and thinking about where you're coming from. So, at least from a Western perspective, I really agree that it does seem to be this, awareness of the inner state from where we are is kind of the blind spot. This second quote, "The success of an intervention depends on the interior condition of the intervener." A CEO of Hanover and Trust, who I also worked with at MIT, a really bright man and a very good leader, said this, and it got me paying attention. And I said this morning, but I'll tell these two stories again as an illustration of what stance is about. A lot of the work that I do has to do with executive coaching. I'm a professional coach, and I also do a lot of consulting, leadership consulting with generally management groups, leadership groups. So a lot of workshops. And when I first started doing this work, I noticed that particularly when I was stressed, if I was late, maybe the plane was late getting in, or I was preoccupied with something that was happening at home or something that just happened to me, and I was feeling a lot of stress. My experience was that the workshops, at least in the beginning, didn't go all that well. It was almost as if my stress got picked up by the audience, and somehow that added to their stress. So I decided, okay, maybe there's something I can do about this. So this is before I started using the word stance, but what I would do before I would do a workshop or an individual coaching session, which I still do, is try to kind of go to a quiet place, get some quiet time, and really relax and center myself. And since I've started to do that, things have been going pretty well. So I thought, gee, we're really, I think, on to something with this. Another example that I used this morning was a conversation with my daughter, who at that time was a 13-year-old teenager, and Richard talked eloquently about what that's like. But she had what I'll call the attitude, and her attitude seemed to be that I knew nothing and my wife knew nothing, and she knew everything. So we were having conversations, and I found them really frustrating. And I'm sure she did too. And we had a number of them, and I finally thought, gee, wait a minute, maybe I should think about this and kind of adopt a different stance. So I thought about who she is, and she's got a great heart. She's got a great sense of humor, smart, articulate, and also she's my daughter, and I really love her. So I thought, okay, I'm going to adopt kind of a loving and accepting stance. Because I realized what I was going into those conversations with was a stance of, she's an obnoxious teenager. That's kind of what was going on in my mind and what I was kind of bringing to the conversation. And I think she picked up on that. But when I shifted, it was magical. The kind of tenor of the conversation changed. She seemed to relax, I seemed to relax, and we've had pretty good conversations since then. So I've sort of experienced the power of stance myself. And let me go on. The other kind of data that we've gotten on stance, we've been doing a course entitled Coaching from a Systems Perspective for about 5 years now, all over the world. And we've done evaluations from each of those programs. And what we've learned is some interesting things. You know, we've been able to do the usual things, transfer some knowledge, and also teach some tools and methods. And also, we give people plenty of chance to practice during the sessions. But the new sort of element is that of stance, and we teach a methodology to help people embody and be aware of their stance. And interestingly enough, the feedback that we've gotten most in terms of what's had the most impact for them is on stance. People said it's really had a dramatic impact on the quality of the coaching that they do, sometimes the quality of teaching that they do, what stance they're holding in the classroom, how the stance they evoke when they're in meetings. So not only in people's professional lives, but they've also reported that it's really had a positive influence on their interactions in their families as well. So, and I learned from my new colleague, Inio, who I'm going to ask to talk about the work that he's been doing. But he's been doing some groups here in Spain. And he and I had a Skype conversation about 5 months ago. And I requested that he kind of share the concept of stance with the groups that he's working with and see what happened. And he's done that. So I'm going to ask him to talk a little bit about that.
Am I?
Yeah.
I didn't know this. I knew that we have done some things together, but not...
Microphone.
Can I speak in Spanish?
Whatever language you would like.
Do we have translation?
Yeah.
We don't have translation. Okay, no, I'll try in English. I'll try my best. Thank you. Voices. Okay. I had the opportunity.
Yeah. She's going to translate.
¿Sí? Necesito el micrófono, vale. ¿Está encendido? Sí, vale. It's okay for you, Jeff?
Yeah.
They will translate.
Yeah.
Sí, vale, lo estoy en ello. Innovas nos puso en contacto, ¿no? A mí me dieron la oportunidad de contactar con Jeff CLANON.
Innova put me in contact with Jeff and with Brennan Spillane and to see what they were working on, to see how we could implement it in what we were doing and see what would happen. The comment is of Mike, but I think I hear her really far away. I think she is asking for his Twitter account. I'm Inigo Marquina. I work at Evocalia together with 3 other colleagues. We've been working together for 3 years. We have some partners in other cities in Spain, and we work on the development of people, on leadership, and facilitating change processes. These are the areas in which we focus. I will have a round table in the afternoon focusing on learning communities. That's the broad topic. So again, going back, I had the opportunity of working with Jeff and Brendan Spillane, and I found out what they were working on and to see what I could take from their work to the processes that, or the projects that I've been developing, specifically on leadership. I won't talk about learning communities right now. Basically what we do, 10 people get together for half a day or a full day every about 2 weeks, and I shared the concept of stance with them. This is very much connected with what I was already doing. And we did a few activities to understand the concept. And for a few days, we observed what was going on. Then they go back to their communities and they see what they observe there, and we work on that. The concept of stance was very well understood, and it's been very powerful with the groups that I've been working with. We're not good with these concepts in Spain, but we had great experiences, and I decided to share them with Jeff. I'll refer to a few, if you don't mind. Aeronautical industry. Production head, responsible for 100 people, and a department that was not doing well, with very difficult members of staff. Results were not very good, and their attitude, their stance was very defying that of those members of his staff. And the interaction based on this stance from these people was very difficult, and that was what contributed to the image that the department had within the organization. So he started thinking about the concept of stance. He asked himself, how can I change my own stance to have a different approach to this problem? He opened himself. He, of course, set himself in a listening stance, a relaxed one, a calm one. And he had a meeting with this group of people. They were just talking for an hour. And the situation has changed completely. They thank him because they felt that he had heard them. He understood some of the issues that they had. This was about a month and a half ago. Last Friday, I met this group, and I asked them, how are things doing? And they said that there's been a great change. There's a lot of cooperation now in that team, in that department. The group, the department, was separated because of their activities, and what happened is that they had no contact with anyone else. And one of the changes is that he makes sure to go every day. He goes there despite the risk, the chemical risk of the facilities. He goes and says, "Good morning." There are many other stories, of course, several others. There was the case of a project leader with a co-worker or a colleague, and she couldn't really she could not have a good relationship with her. And she found a way to try to get closer. And she chose the stance of curiosity, because, you know, human beings are curious by nature. When we want to get closer to someone, we start seeing other things, valuable aspects of other people. And she didn't say anything to the other person. She just changed her own stance, and the relationship has changed completely. She changed her stance, and that was the result, without having a conversation with her colleague, her coworker, actually. And her goal now is for the whole team to also change their stance about this person. That's her next challenge. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for sharing the concept of stance. It's very moving. All of the stories that I've heard out of my experiences of these projects have been very moving, by looking for their blind spot and identifying a stance they've been changed.
So it works in Spain too. Okay, like I said, I think the way to learn this is actually to try it on. So the first thing that I would like you to do is find a partner you'll be working with. Just one partner, and I would say someone that speaks your language, so that'll make it a little bit easier. So find a partner. Okay, good, thank you. This is much easier with 20 people than it is with 1,000 people. So, what I'd like you to do, and I'll just give you about a minute to do this, is just introduce yourself to one another and share with one another what your stance is right now, at this moment. So, what are you feeling inside? What's going on inside? And what are you feeling in your body? And each of you share that with one another. Go ahead. No partner? That was about that, all the way back. Thank you. Okay, let me have your attention. Okay, so would a couple of you be willing to share what your stance is right in this moment? What did you say? Somebody laughed here. What was your stance? What is your stance? Thank you.
Bueno, muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you, everyone. Our stance right now is joy, suppression by being able to be in Spain and to be able to present a project from our university in Colombia. The fact that our university supported our trip here, and we felt that it was something almost impossible. But now, from the University of Manizales, we got the support to allow us to come here. So this is like a dream come true. So the stance is of achievement.
Sí, del logro, y también he oído alegría.
His body language too. What other ones?
Thank you. Yo me siento.
I'm trying to find what I feel. Usually before my sessions, I'm a coach. I try to identify how I feel at that moment. So to try to connect to yourself and to connect with your being. So my stance now is to feel connected with myself. I am thankful for the opportunity to be here, and I feel active, nervous as well, but nervous because I'm really enjoying. And then you don't entirely relaxed because you're also open, curious. I've also met friends from university, so I feel this has opened my perspective as well.
I want to say, sounds like to me that you've been practicing stance already.
Hola.
Hola.
Perdón, me saco esto porque me aturdo.
My name is Marcela. I'm from Argentina. And I understood that what you wanted to know is how we felt, what was our stance right now at this conference. And the way I feel right now is sort of aligned. It reminds me of a poem that says, if I changed, a new dawn will be waiting for me. And this is the message that I got from this part of the beginning of this talk, and this is what I feel, what I want to implement. Although I have done it before, that's it really. Thank you.
Very inspiring. The open, new dawn, the open to that. Great. Thank you. Okay, so I want to continue this practice, and thank you for sharing your stances. Appreciate that. I'd like you to remain with your partner that you or partners, some of you have a couple, and talk about some past experience that you've had, some interaction, preferably the recent past so you remember it well, and try to remember it. This experience could be in a professional situation, in a group, family, whatever, doesn't matter. And an interaction that maybe went very well or maybe didn't go well, doesn't matter. But where you wanted to influence that and have a particular positive outcome, and where it would have been important for you to be a good leader. So each of you, each of the partners, think of a situation like that, an interaction that you really remember, that you think is important. And then you take turns and have your partner ask you these questions. What was your stance at that time in that interaction? What impact do you think your stance had on that interaction? And then thirdly, think about whether you assume a particular stance kind of in a habitual way, often. Because often around stance, we're creatures of habit, and we tend to fall back on, several stances. So the partner asks that question too. Do you assume a particular usual stance? So I'm going to give you, about 5 minutes each to do this and talk about this. So first think about it, and then one partner go, and I'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes, and then switch. Okay? Go ahead. Okay. All right, could you finish up your conversation? Hello? Could you bring your attention up back to front, please? Thank you. Thank you. Sounds like these conversations were good conversations. So let me ask, what I'm most curious about is this question of, do you tend to fall into the same stance, kind of as a habit? I'll share this. When I was younger, if I was in an intense group situation or even one-on-one, my stance would be to withdraw. I'd adopt a withdrawing stance, which sometimes was okay, but mostly not so good. So I'm curious about, do any of you tend to call it the default stance that you fall into? Anyone?
I know that stance, the withdrawal.
Withdrawal one?
I know that.
That's familiar. Yeah.
Buenas, me llamo Iñaki Iraola y
My name is Iñaki Iraola. I'm from Bilbao, the most beautiful city in Spain. You should have a visit if you haven't had time yet. I usually devote time to things. I think a lot. And when I talk, I'm very sure. And that leads me not to be too flexible,
My wife would describe that as my having a stubborn stance. Maybe not, that's not quite what you mean. But I know what you mean. Maybe not a less open stance, more predictable. Good. Anybody else?
Bueno, yo soy Samuel.
I'm from Argentina, from Patagonia, down south. My name is Samuel. I have led groups for many years, but I've chosen an experience with my children. They are 26, 28, and 30 years old. And my stance has always been, be careful, watch out, and to warn them about things. And I've had to change that stance out of situations in life and to let them make mistakes because they thanked me. And the reaction was that they kept telling me, oh, Dad, don't tell me that again. You know, we know what we're doing. But now, of course, I have to bite my tongue, don't say anything, and to wait for them to come and ask me, Dad, how can I do so that I don't make a mistake? To achieve that stance took me very long, but it's having better results. Now they expect, they wait and they ask me. That's better.
I can really identify with that. It's very hard to not be protective of your children. And it's easy to get into, oh, don't go there, warn them about things. And if they're older, they don't want to hear that, you know. And letting your kids make mistakes, or even the people that are working for you or in a professional situation, that's not such an easy thing to do, but it's often the best way to learn. So thank you, I appreciate your sharing that. Okay, so next thing I want to do is, again, this is a repeat for those of you who were here this morning, but this is a methodology for initiating and embodying a stance. And again, I'll say what I said this morning. This isn't, there isn't a right or wrong about this. This is the process that I found works best for me. And we've taught this, and it seems to work pretty well for other people as well. So the first is awareness, just to kind of be aware of your stance. And let me say something I didn't say earlier. All leadership interactive situations aren't created equal. I'm not advocating or suggesting that you do this for every conversation or every meeting, but rather just the ones you see as being really important. Maybe that conversation with your children, or that you really want it to go well. That's the time, I call them high leverage situations, important situations. So that's the time to use this. So be aware of what your stance is, and then set an intention. What stance or stances do you think might have the most positive impact in a future situation? And the future situation may be in a few minutes, or maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks. For me, it's really important to do this in a quiet, relaxed sort of space, where rather than thinking about what would work, just envisioning the situation, the room, the people that I've been, and seeing what emerges as the stances and that might want to work. It's almost like the stance sort of emerges and goes through me. It almost doesn't come from me. That's how it is for me. And just before you engage in the leadership interaction, pay attention to where your stance is. And my experience is, and this is a little bit magical, when you actually go in the situation, it will emerge. Just as an example, when I did the keynote this morning, one of the stances that I envisioned last night was being relaxed and comfortable, feeling relaxed and comfortable. And when I got there, I just was. It just kind of happened. I felt fine. I felt relaxed. I felt pretty comfortable. I wasn't going, oh, I have to be relaxed. You know what I mean? I just kind of let it happen. So, and then embody it, in the moment. So, we'll go to the future now. And the first thing I want to do is do a little bit of this awareness and attention, those steps. So I'd like you to get comfortable in your seats. Just relax. You might even want to close your eyes. Whatever it is that you can reduce the external stimulation and just kind of focus on inside. And you might want to be aware of your breath. And just be quiet your mind, and just relax your body. And bring your awareness to your current state. If you're feeling a little bit tense in anywhere in your body, just let that tension go. Just let it go right down into the floor. And now envision a situation in the future, preferably not too long, maybe in a few days or a week, not more than a couple weeks, that's going to be an important meeting or conversation that you want to go well, where you want to influence it in a positive way. Just imagine that setting, the setting that you'll be in if you can. Imagine the person or people that you'll be interacting with, and just get a picture in your mind of what that'll be like. And now imagine embodying the stance or stances that you want to in that situation. Just imagine yourself being both on the inside and the outside, how you want to be in that situation. Okay, part 2 here. I would, again, work with your same partner and share, each of you share the context that you envisioned in the future interaction. Just very quickly, 1 or 2 sentences. You don't want to go on and on about this. Just what the context is so the other person has some idea. And then you practice. You be the leader. You kind of role play that you want to be. Just say what you think, some of the things that you might say in that interaction. Just be the person that you want to be and enact the stances that you want to in that situation. And I'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes for this, and then switch. And then the other person share the context and kind of role play, practice the stance that they want to be in. Is that clear? Is that clear? Okay, go ahead. Okay. All right, I just have one question. How did you do? Were you able to embody the stance that you envisioned? Yeah? I see one nod. Anybody else? Were you able to kind of be who you wanted to be? Do you think that'll be helpful when you actually have the conversation? Yes? Yes? Good. 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 Anything anybody else want to share about that little interaction with your partner or partners? Did you learn anything?
My name is Anar. I live in San Sebastian. I still need to work on my stance. I have a conversation that I need to have with one of my sisters because we had a disagreement some time ago, and I'll see her in 15 days. I have it's a silly thing really, but it's the first time that we actually have a discussion, a disagreement. So it's something new for me. So I see the stance that I want to have, but it hasn't come yet. I think I've envisioned it, but with my head only. I still have 15 days anyway to get it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, take the time that you need, and it's true. When you have some time, things will kind of emerge if you let them as you get closer. So that's perfect, and great example of an important conversation too. You want things to be good between you and your sister. Absolutely.
Yo soy
I'm Sandra Velasco from Madrid, a beautiful city as well. And I work on a ear stimulation project. From the exercise, what I've realized is that when we have or we want to have a stance, we both talk about the gaze, the look, what we can transmit with our eyes, whether it's empathy or misery. It's your eyes that share that transmit that.
That's exactly right. The research says that more than 80% of the communication that we get when we're in conversation is nonverbal. So our body talks a lot louder than our words. So I hope this was helpful. And I appreciate your cooperation and willingness to kind of practice and play with this a little bit. And I hope you've gotten something you can actually apply to your own life. So thank you very much.
Thank you.